That, I often say that if I hear the phrase rites of passage movies again, I'll go mad, because I'm never very sure what it means. Kind of coming-of-age movie. You've made a few of these. Do you think that directors know much about, or writers, grown-up writers, know much about teenagers and how they actually do come of age?
No, I think that most of the movies I see about teenagers are really pretty wrong, and I don't see, I think that it's just an adult's idea of what they want their teenagers to be like, or what, and I don't get it. It kind of bothers me, but I've always tried to avoid those and stuck to what I believe to be pretty real.
What do you think they get wrong about teenagers?
Well, you know, they just tend to really stereotype them. You know, they like to put labels on teenagers, like this one's you know, takes drugs and is a stoner or whatever they call him that week, and then the other one's a jock, and they just love to label kids when they don't treat them with enough respect. You
think you're either a good teenager or a bad teenager?
Exactly, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, and you said it much better than I did. But you were called Winona because you were born in a silly-sounding town in Minnesota.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Minnesota's the back of beyond, isn't it, really?
Oh, it's one of my, I love it there.
Yeah. It's a long way from everywhere, though.
Yeah, it's like kind of, it's real out in the middle of the country.
How'd you get from Winona, Minnesota, to Los Angeles, California?
Well, I never grew up in Minnesota. I was born there because my mom is from there and she was visiting, and I just kind of came out. And we moved to San Francisco, and that's where I grew up. So I grew up in California.
Were your mother and father unconventional parents, do you think?
Well, not really. I mean, they've been called unconventional. It depends on what you mean by unconventional. They, you know, of course, they were active in the 60s, so they got, you know, labeled as hippies when really they weren't hippies. They were just kind of more on the intellectual side of the 60s than the other side.
They weren't flower children?
No, they weren't. They were, but of course people like to make it sound like they were. And I mean, I grew up in a household where we had, you know, rules like everybody else, and you know, it was pretty conventional, I would think, you know.
Were they
we just
strict?
had a little more. They were strict, but they were also, they encouraged us to come to them with any sort of problem that we might have that most kids aren't able to go to their parents with. Like if we had a question about, you know, drugs or anything like that, we could go to them and they would talk to us about them and take the mystery away so we wouldn't go out and get it on the street. So they really encouraged a lot of, like, there was a lot of communication in our family, you know, which was really, really nice because we weren't repressed, you know, we didn't have to go find out for ourselves what it was all about. Is
it tough for somebody like you, working in the film business, a young lady like you, to avoid drugs, to avoid drink?
I'm just not interested in it. I mean, I can see how some people might turn to it, but it just doesn't. I'm too little. It affects me too much. I get too hungover if I do anything. So, it's not my thing.